Having a good family background and good appearance, the male protagonist does not love him, but because of his love, he harbors hatred and commits many evil deeds, resulting in a tragic ending. The proper and malicious script for the second female lead falls on Dong Wanwan, Xiao Yu. Dong Wanwan, an unlucky person easily crushed by the female protagonist of Time Crossing. She is the most arrogant and domineering young lady in the general's mansion in the capital. Her family fell apart overnight, and in order to survive in the world, she changed her name and lived in seclusion in a remote town. Unfortunately, being plagued by unlucky physical conditions, rotten peach blossoms, homicide cases, getting involved in disputes, and unforeseeable disasters. There is never a moment of resolution. What else can we do? Make do and live for another few decades. Keywords of the novel. In addition to beauty, she also has a body full of mold without pop-ups. In addition to beauty, she also has a body full of mold. Download the full text of the text. In addition to beauty, she also has a body full of mold. Latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Waste with poor qualifications and excellent peach blossom luck. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Waste with poor qualifications and excellent peach blossom luck. Sister, look, there are tomatoes on sticks there. Run slowly, be careful of falling. The woman hurriedly chased after her, but didn't notice a figure walking out of the alley and colliding with the person. The wine in the gourd spilled all over the ground, fragrant compared to the osmanthus flowers towering over the courtyard wall. A faint sentence drifted from above. Are you okay? It turned out to be a delicate young man. She had never seen such a beautiful man before, and couldn't help but feel palpitations. Her already ashamed cheeks were tinged with a hint of crimson. No, it's okay. The other person's back was against the wall, and their face was a bit unpleasant. It must be that they had hit hard. Young master, are you okay? But was it hurt? The young man glanced at her nervous expression and helplessly replied, no problem, then withdrew his gaze and bent down to pick up the wine gourd. Seeing him about to leave, the woman hurriedly stopped him and said, it's all my fault for walking carelessly and knocking over the young master's wine. The young master came out of the alley and must have gone to fetch wine from Uncle Chen. At today's gathering, Uncle Chen's family's business is better than usual. It's even harder for the young master to fetch this pot of wine. The young woman feels ashamed and cannot help but feel guilty. The young man didn't speak, only slightly frowned and looked at her. The eyebrows and eyes are clear and noble, like a clear spring in the eyes, not arrogant or restless like the spring breeze brushing away, making people unconsciously fall deep. At his glance, the woman's chest became even more delicate and shy. Why don't you come with me to Chen Abe's shop again, young master? I'll compensate for the young master's wine. Uncle Chen has been doing business for decades, and there are no people in this town that he doesn't know. He brought the young man over and asked for his surname, who lives, so that his parents could find a matchmaker to come and talk to him. Even though he was only wearing a plain blue robe, it was not difficult to see that his workmanship was extremely exquisite, his appearance was handsome and dignified, his eyes were clear, and he was not frivolous or promiscuous at all. He looked like a good man raised by a good family. The moment she bumped into was not when she cursed and accused her, but when she asked if she was okay. Such a gentle young man is rare in the world. Although not as good as my own family, my family background is definitely not too bad. In addition, with proper cultivation, my parents value male character so much that I must be very happy to see him. She pondered deeply in her heart, and the young man spread out his palm with a calm expression, saying, no need to trouble, just compensate. 2 copper plates. A pot of wine costs 5 copper coins, and Xiao Yu only asked her to pay a small compensation. Ignoring the other party's infatuated and reluctant gaze, she turned around and merged into the crowd. Following her senior brother's cultivation, she lost most of her body and went down the mountain wearing men's clothes today. No wonder this woman mistook her for a man. If it had been in the past, she had a proud heart and would not have easily let go of this woman. She was born with no worries about food and clothing, and no amount of silver would have made her happy. She trampled on her dignity and trampled on her feet, only then could she vent her anger. But now, she is just a little disciple working as a laborer under the seat of Zuanzhenzi in Qinglongshan, Jiangning town. She has nurtured a broad mind and needs to forgive others. The past will eventually become the past. Jiangning is thousands of miles away from the capital city. She is no longer the legitimate daughter of the general's mansion, and Dong Wanwan died in exile. Along with her love, hate, anger, and obsession, she disappeared into the world. Recalling the woman's infatuation and entanglement, she twisted her eyebrows again. It was really so easy to fall in love with someone, it was just worth a glance. In a daze, she seemed to see her former self. At that time, she was even more crazy than this woman, clinging to that person and never letting go. In the end, it was just a dream, and the person she loved destroyed everything with their own hands, pushing her into hell. He held a high position and was already very unfamiliar, no longer pleasing or docile. Instead, he held the position and power of the Eastern Palace, with one person below 10,000 people. Dong Wanwan, your retribution has arrived. My father, uncles, and older brothers were taken to the execution ground, while my mother and aunt died on the road of exile. As a result, the once prosperous Dong family in the capital declined. Her retribution has finally come, with turbulent waves and overwhelming earth. On the day she left the capital, the crown princess personally gave her a ride and said, "If you don't have the protagonist's aura, don't die. Living is the greatest blessing." The woman from 1,000 years later spoke strangely and acted with an exceptionally unique style, making many enemies. Strangely, she repeatedly turned danger into safety and called it the protagonist halo. How lucky to be favored by heaven. And she finally got down the mountain, spilled wine all over the ground, lost most of her money, and felt a faint pain from hitting her chest and back. Not only that, just a few hours down the mountain, she was caught in a murder case. Tu Yuany's eldest daughter was raped and killed, and her body was found at the foot of our Qinglong mountain. It is said that her death was extremely tragic, and Tu Yuany is deeply saddened. The government has posted a wanted notice to arrest the murderer, with a reward of 1,000 taels. When the fifth senior brother Lu Qingshan said these words to his master and other senior brothers, Xiao Yu happened to walk in, holding a sharp sword with a cold aura, and his cold eyes startled him. So like, he murmured with a smack of his tongue. Zuanzhenzi didn't hear it at all. His sharp gaze crossed Lao Wu and landed on Xiao Yu behind him. He asked softly, "Little fish, how have you been practicing the cold ice sword manual?" Xiao Yu has been in Qinglong mountain for 3 years. When she first climbed the mountain, her body was too delicate and her hands couldn't carry her shoulders. Xianzhenzi looked down on her, so he sent her to do some errands every day to practice her physical strength. At that time, she was like a walking corpse, her eyes were empty and lifeless, and everything she did was like a string puppet. Zuanzhenzi endured for half a month, but couldn't bear to see it, so he called his disciples to discuss. Lu Qingshan took the lead and said, "We don't raise waste in Qinglong mountain. My disciple suggested driving her away to avoid my master's daily worries. They are all talented individuals selected from thousands of sources, vowing to make a name for themselves and let the world know the reputation of Qinglong mountain. Unfortunately, she didn't come with a proper name, that's all. Her qualifications are still extremely poor, just a waste. Watching it is annoying." Second senior brother Gu Yuyang followed closely behind and said, "Old Wu's words are rough and not rough. Since she is unwilling, let her go. If there is no place to go, I will ask my mother to go across the river to find the matchmaker surnamed Wang and tell her about a good marriage. It is not bad to be at home with a husband and a son." Master brother Chu Zhijiang looked disdainful and said, "Vulgarity. Gu Youyang's chest fluctuated and he hesitated to speak, but he didn't want to fall behind. With a tug of his throat, he let out a heavy cold snort. Tang Bai, the third senior brother, is smooth in his dealings with the world. He smiled and tried to smooth things out, saying, Senior brother Gu and Lao Wu have made a lot of sense. Senior brother Chu has always been far from the secular world, and he can understand even if he can't get used to it. The decision-making power is in the hands of the master. How the master makes a decision is up to you, disciple Meng. What do you think? Old Si Meng Xiuan has no problem at all. He is only focused on practicing swordsmanship and has no intention of anything else. What is the new direction and what is his connection to him? End of this chapter. Chapter 2, okay. She's now a murderer. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2, okay. She's now a murderer. Zuanzhenzi rubbed her eyebrows and said helplessly, since you three senior uncles entrusted her to me, I should take good care of her. If you can't share my worries, don't come and cause trouble. Lu and Gu looked embarrassed and had been banned from speaking, so they had to politely shut up. Unable to come to an agreement, Zuanzhenzi called Xiao Yu and asked her to choose one of the 5 senior brothers to practice with him for a month. Xiao Yu looked lazy and didn't even glance at his senior brothers. His eyes were extremely indifferent. The disciples are all arranged by their master, she said. The 2nd and 5th senior brothers didn't like her, while the 3rd and 4th senior brothers didn't want to cause trouble, so she had a romantic relationship with the 1st senior brother. Chu Zhijiang was a silent person who usually spoke no more than 3 sentences. At that time, Xiao Yu was deeply immersed in the grief of losing a loved one, and the two of them were facing each other day by day, with little communication. The so-called cultivation refers to working at sunrise and resting at sunset. Within a month, the eastern slope was covered with flowers, plants, and trees. Facing the rising sun, Xiao Yu finally fell seriously ill. To everyone's surprise, the first thing she woke up with was concern. But the flowers have bloomed. Chu Zhijiang, who has always been aloof and self-sufficient, opened a golden mouth for the first time and requested that Zuanzhenzi allow him to continue practicing with his junior sister. The cold ice sword manual was also a gift from him. Xiao Yu, an ignorant Rendu Ermai, had been practicing for 2 years before gradually improving, and the hardships he endured were imaginable. As the cold subsided, Xiao Yu bowed to his master and senior brothers and replied, Master, I have practiced the 15th move. Pui. Lu Qingshan sneered, Senior brother practiced the cold ice sword technique in a month and a half, but you've been practicing it for almost 2 years, half of it hasn't been practiced yet. Even turtles can climb faster than you. I really don't know what senior brother thinks, but he gave you the ancestral sword manual, this stupid bird. Xiao Yu did not argue, and after spending a long time with his senior brother, he inevitably developed a habit of being silent and indifferent to everything. All right. Xian Zhenzi rebuked, Old Wu, how can you teach Xiao Yu? Your senior brother has his own plans in mind, so don't get too involved. Xiao Yu silently bowed. Dog leg. Lu Qingshan cursed in his heart, but his mouth was much more obedient. Master taught you a lesson, and I will remember it in my heart. But Master, I'm afraid my junior sister has really caused trouble this time. I secretly glanced at Xiao Yu, who had a calm expression, as if it was irrelevant, like a basin of cold water pouring down, which made him extremely unhappy. Then he took out a piece of paper from his chest and proudly displayed it one by one. This is the wanted notice I tore down from the street. Master, all senior brothers, take a closer look at the people on this portrait, are they very familiar? It looks a bit familiar. How does it look like? Junior sister. Chu Zhijiang looked sideways at Xiao Yu, who had an innocent expression on his face, as if asking what was going on, but Xiao Yu didn't know. The person who knocked over her wine gourd in the town the day before yesterday was Tu Zhenjian, the eldest daughter of Tu Yuanwai. The body was discovered yesterday morning, and the autopsy determined that the time of death was from Shenshi to Xushi the day before yesterday. Tang Bai asked, when did junior sister come back from the mountain to fetch wine the day before yesterday? Xiao Yu replied, at the moment of Yushi. It takes less than half an hour to climb the mountain from the town, which means that shortly after her separation from Tu Xinjin encountered an unexpected situation. Moreover, the portrait of the killer posted was also hers. People are unlucky, even drinking cold water can fill their teeth. Master. Lu Qingshan knelt down with a heavy expression and said, Master, while this matter is not yet serious, I earnestly request Master to expel Xiao Yu from the sect. Our Qinglong Mountain must not be despised by the world for being a murderer. Okay, she's now a murderer. Senior brother Wu was already displeased with her, but this time he caught the opportunity. If he didn't make a scene, how could he be willing to give up easily? Absurdity. Chu Zhijiang sneered, the truth of the matter has not been found out yet, and the government has not convicted it. You have been killing people one by one, and it's really easy to say. Senior brother, don't rush to stand up for her. Even if you spend time together day and night, you may know people's faces but not your hearts. It's difficult to paint a tiger's skin and bones, and be careful not to provoke a lot of trouble. Lu Qingshan kept biting her tightly, his words sharp and aggressive, determined to completely drive her down the mountain. If it were a few years ago, she would have pointed at Lu Qingshan's nose, scolded his ancestors for 18 generations, and then ordered someone to beat him up and hang him at the city gate for 3 days and 3 nights. If she still couldn't relieve her anger, she would have brought the best embroidery lady in the capital and sewed his mouth into a flower. Dong Wanwan's methods were ruthless and revenge was inevitable, but Xiao Yu looked down on them a lot. Therefore, when faced with Lu Qingshan who slandered her, she only lightly refuted them. I am a woman and cannot rape or kill another woman. As if expecting her to say so, Lu Qingshan looked contemptuous and said, you can't, maybe you have other accomplices. As for me, I wouldn't even call you down the mountain on weekdays. The day before yesterday, I took the initiative to drink for my master to eat. It's likely because I secretly made some fox friends at the foot of the mountain that I'm so proactive. If you want to add sin, why not hesitate? Despite what Lu Qingshan said, she still looked calm and indifferent, with one side angry and the other indifferent, appearing as if Lu Qingshan was singing a monologue. Listening to the commotion, Xian Jinzi waved his hand and whispered, don't make any more noise. You all go out, little fish stay. Knowing the truth, Zuanzhenzi furrowed her brows and fell into contemplation. Xiao Yuduan sat quietly on the side, waiting. She had seen too much of this trick of framing others in the capital and had long been accustomed to it. Zuanzhenzi asked her, raping and killing a woman is a serious crime. Little fish, who have you ever been against in your daily life? Fifth senior brother. She blurted out, and Xian Jinzi's brow furrowed even deeper, only because Lao Wu and the other 3 disciples had followed him to the Wuyin pavilion the day before yesterday. Moreover, being able to pin the charge of rape and murder on a woman indicates that the perpetrator and Xiao Yu do not know each other, otherwise how could one know that she is from a daughter's family? As a result, things became even more mysterious and confusing. The next day, Zuanzhenzi went to Tu Mansion in the name of condolence and did a ritual for Miss Tuesday. As soon as the ritual was over, the butler hurriedly reported, Sir, Madam, the murderer has been caught. Congratulations, Madam. Zuanzhenzi couldn't help but show a happy expression on his face. Xiao Yu is not good at practicing martial arts, and the timing is extremely accurate. It's neither too early nor too late. 2 hours later, the master and disciple met again, and Xian Jinzi became a guest of honor in the Tu Mansion, while Xiao Yu added a new outfit for free. A person with outstanding temperament, even wearing a burlap bag is also eye-catching. Xiao Yu, wearing a prison robe, does not look down and out, more like a leisurely practitioner. Faced with the scolding of the two family, she still maintains a calm expression. Zuanzhenzi couldn't help but recall 3 years ago, when he first saw her, he was also dressed in a prison robe. However, at that time, she was wounded and lifeless, far from her current good complexion. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Sick Beauty Zhao Wuling. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Sick Beauty Zhao Wuling. After Tu Yuanwei and his wife left, Xiao Yu observed the movements around and softly called out, "Master." She sat on the ground with a straight posture, and Xianzhenzi felt extremely sorry for her. "I have suffered." He never married in his life, had no children, and raised his disciples as children. Xiao Yu was the only girl, and he felt even more heartbroken. "Master, don't frown. I'm fine." Xiao Yu smiled and asked, as if chatting about family matters, "Did Master find anyone suspicious just as he came all the way here?" "There are a few sneaky people, but—" Dao Chang, the butler of Tu Mansion, returned and said, "My family members and my wife invited the Taoist priest to come to the mansion for a talk." After 3 years, Xiao Yu was imprisoned again, but her mood was different. "My father's military achievements were remarkable throughout his life, and he was unjustly accused of colluding with the enemy and betraying the country, ultimately leading to the downfall of his family. Before her death, she had to swear to heaven that changing her name and surname would never allow her to return to the capital, and she would never seek revenge against that person." She agreed. When he was young, he admired him and hoped to become a married couple, playing the zither and harmonizing with him. However, he stepped on the bodies of the Dong family and ascended from the neglected king of Jin to the position of Eastern Palace Prince. In terms of means and cruelty, she cannot match him. The cold and damp dungeon, the sour rice and cold soup, and the rustling mouse shadows at night were all knocking on her spine, making her unable to sleep at night and losing her dignity. Now, no one has come to see the joke. She is relatively free in this dark prison, hoping that things will turn around soon and catch the real culprit, so that Tuzhinjin can rest in peace under the 9 springs. At noon, the food delivered is non-toxic. Presumably, she suddenly turned herself in, and the killer wanted to silence her before finding an opportunity. After lunch, she sat cross-legged, waiting for the sun to set. The prison was clean, with no room for any movement to escape. Therefore, when she opened her eyes and saw Gowing standing in front of the prison door, her heart suddenly tightened. If it were the culprit, her skills would definitely be extraordinary. The prison guard may have been knocked unconscious. In terms of martial arts, she is not a match, but there are many ways to survive. A cold light flashed on the fingertip of the right hand. The silver needle left by the master before leaving can be used to test poison or as a weapon. In the beginning, in order to practice flying needles, her fingers were pricked to the point of blood and flesh blurring, and she barely penetrated half an inch into the wall. As someone with flesh and blood, she couldn't compare with a hard wall. With her current skills, this person would be half disabled even if she didn't die. For a long time, the other party seemed to have no intention of taking action. Xiao Yu was also pondering what this person wanted to do, but heard his deep and dignified voice. "It's really you." When Marquis Anil was young, he was full of energy. He had a big argument with his wife and went out to seek pleasure. Unexpectedly, that night he was tricked and had an illegitimate son named Wuling. If there is still a good family member to say, but unfortunately it was left by a prostitute, and the lady of Anil Marquis refused to accept it no matter what. Anil Marquis was afraid of the situation and had no feelings for the prostitute, so he ordered someone to give him some money to send him away. There are very few people in the capital who know the identity of Zhao Wuling, and Xiao Yu is one of them. No, it's not her Xiao Yu, but Dong Wanwan. When Zhao Wuling passed the imperial examination, Dong Wanwan was only 28 years old. She only knew that Marquis Anil had an illegitimate son, but she had never seen him before. On that day, it was cloudy and rainy in the capital, and she didn't like to leave the mansion on rainy days. When she heard that the king of Jin had arrived at the Huiying pavilion in the suburbs of the capital, she was overjoyed and hurriedly left the city without putting on her cloak. Zhao Wuling is located on the left side of the king of Jin, wearing a long robe and a high crown. He has a unique and cool temperament, described as very handsome, but with a hint of illness. The Dong family has served as generals for 3 generations, and women can even make up for half of their children. Dong Wanwan has been exposed to this since childhood, and her eyes can only accommodate a strong and muscular man. Zhao Wuling, a sick beauty, is afraid that she will vomit blood and fall to the ground if she punches her. The Huiying pavilion is filled with descendants of aristocratic families, most of whom hold official and semi-official positions in the court. They are extremely dissatisfied with her, an arrogant and uninvited young lady, and ridicule her for not being worthy of being with them. Some even speak up and drive people away. At that time, her face was thicker than the city wall, and she scolded everyone back. It was not easy to offend either end, so the king of Jin pretended to ease a few sentences before giving up. Seeing this, her heart inexplicably ignited a wave of anger, turning the spear towards the only person in the room who did not speak. "Bold, are you watching this young lady joke?" The sick beauty smiled with a hint of blood on her pale face and replied, "Wuling dare not." Afterwards, she suddenly realized that the sick beauty was the illegitimate son of Marquis Anil. Later, the king of Jin planned and strategized all the way until he took control of the Eastern Palace, but Zhao Wuling never appeared. The person who can sit next to the king of Jin and discuss matters is probably not a simple person. Now that the king of Jin is in power, Zhao Wuling should rise step by step, and only those who enjoy delicious food and spicy food in the capital can appear in Jiangning town, thousands of miles away. My heart was hit hard, giving me an illusion of being separated from the world. "Do you recognize me, young master?" Perhaps she didn't expect her to pretend to be ignorant. Zhao Wuling paused and smiled, saying, "I do recognize you. Now the entire Jiangning town is covered with your wanted posters." He pretended to cooperate, and Xiao Yu quietly breathed a sigh of relief. When she saw an old friend, she needed to mention the past, but she refused. Moreover, Zhao Wuling cannot be considered her old friend. Judging from his attire, he was not from the Yamen, nor was he here to investigate the case. She had nothing to say and lowered her head, playing with the silver needle as if no one was around. Seemingly careless, in reality, one is on guard. Zhao Wuling suddenly appeared in Jiangning, which inevitably made people doubt his purpose in this appearance. She had formed too many enemies with others before, and I can't remember whether she offended him. It's impossible to guarantee that Qi people are here to seek revenge. 3 years ago, if someone came to seek revenge, she would have let them kill her, but now it's different. She already has thoughts of life and doesn't want to die. The prison was dimly lit, and no one knew her thoughts. Zhao Wuling raised his eyebrows and eyes slightly, bent his fingers, and knocked on the rusty prison door, making a muffled sound. She is worthy of being the daughter of a general, as she can still remain so calm even after suffering a lifelong lawsuit. Oh, how could Zhao forget that Miss Dong has more than one life on her body? She's just a daughter outside of the office. I'm sure Miss Dong won't take it seriously. When Zhuangzhenzi arrived, he found that his beloved disciple's fingers were riddled with wounds and dark red blood dripping all over the ground. The old man, who had remained calm for a lifetime, wished he could transform into a fly and fly into the prison. "Oh my fish, how careless of you to prick yourself like this. Come over and let me take a look." Xiao Yu was lost in thought, and Zhuangzhenzi's throat pulled her thoughts back. Looking down, her hands were covered in blood. Why didn't she feel any pain? Teared off a piece of clothing and wrapped it around the pricked finger, pulling out a stiff smile. "My disciple is usually lazy and not proficient in practice, which is why I hurt myself. Master, there's no need to worry, it's not a big deal. By the way, Master, is there any progress in the matter?" She deliberately opened up the topic, so Xianzhenzi had to follow her. After all, there are big and small things, and catching the real culprit to clear the injustice for her disciple is the right thing. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. A good-looking person has a kind heart. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 4. A good-looking person has a kind heart. There are a few suspicious people who are difficult to escape as a teacher. Your senior brother and second senior brother have come down the mountain and are currently investigating. Are the two senior brothers also here? Yeah, I heard that I took you down the mountain to surrender under my guidance. Your master brother is very anxious and blames me as a master for being indiscriminate and wasting my time as a teacher. Thinking of his senior brother's serious reprimand of his master, Xiao Yu couldn't help but laugh. Only master brother dared to speak to master like this in the entire Qinglong mountain. If it were someone else, they would have been whipped long ago and would not have been able to get up for half a month. Your senior brother is really worried about you. He also learned about the footprints of two people at the crime scene, one of whom is Miss Tu's. Xiao Yu raised her eyebrows and said, "The culprit is a person." Yes, I am worried that you will be bound in this prison. If the murderer has martial arts skills, you may have only one silver needle in your hand that is difficult to deal with, so I borrowed a pretext to see you. Thank you, master. Xiao Yu nodded slightly. Her master has always given her free-range care, so it must be because the eldest senior brother was worried about her getting into trouble, so he nagged her to come and visit. Except for Tu Xinjin, there was only one man's footprints on site, and this evidence alone can prove that Xiao Yuqing was innocent. But she did not indicate her identity as a woman and chose to continue her imprisonment, only to bring out the true culprit. She is the bait, and if the killer wants to be carefree in the future, he will definitely find ways to make her die in prison. At that time, she will be afraid of committing suicide. Tomorrow at noon, the murderer will be brought to trial, and there must be some action at night. Tu Fu. Upon hearing the butler's report, Tu Yuanwei hurriedly returned to the Lingtang. In the hall, a man dressed in a black and exquisite robe was thrusting incense into the incense burner, with a tall and elegant posture. He could tell from his back that he was an extraordinary person. Tu Yuanwei climbed up the stairs and knelt down at the door with a thud. I, as an official, have come to see the young marquis. I don't know if the young marquis is coming, but I didn't treat you well. I hope the young marquis can forgive me. Zhao Wuling bent down to help him up and comforted him, saying, "Please get up quickly. The mansion has encountered such an unexpected situation, and we kindly ask the officials to pay their respects." Tu Jin was pleasantly surprised and said, "Thank you very much for your care, Lord Xiaoho. I can still hold on, and the tea has been prepared. Please take a seat in the front hall." A dark shadow suddenly moved to Zhao Wuling's side and coldly refused, "No need, my young master never drinks other people's tea." Tu Jin and the butler looked at each other with a smirk on their faces. Unexpectedly, I didn't know that the young marquis had such taboos. He didn't dare to take a breath and was afraid of making the nobleman unhappy. Please forgive me, Marquis. I don't know. Zhao Wuling smiled and said, "It's okay. If there's an urgent matter outside the staff, it's better to handle it quickly. Miss Chuanxia, please lead us to the front hall." Chuanxia is Miss Tu's personal maid. After her own miss had an accident, Chuanxia was inevitably punished. If it weren't for her lack of parents and brothers, Lady Tu would have kicked her out of the mansion long ago. Spring and summer limped ahead, and when Zhao Wuling asked, she answered, being careful not to make any more mistakes. Zhao Wuling looked up at the scenery in the mansion and asked, as if unintentionally, "Spring and summer girls, how many times have you been in Tu mansion?" In 16 years, he was sold into the mansion at the age of 3. Tu Xinjin has just turned 28 years old this year. So, you and your young lady have grown up together since childhood. Does your young lady have a marriage match? Not yet, there are several people who come to propose marriage, but the young lady doesn't like them and refuses them all. As his gaze shifted to his feet, he saw a weed sprouting from a crevice in the stone. Zhao Wuling then said, "Be careful when choosing your son. In law. I think Miss Tu is a proud person." At this point, Chuanxia said helplessly, "Miss only wants to marry her beloved, but the master and lady have multiple considerations." Miss argued countless times, and later all the people who proposed marriage were beaten out by her. The words had just finished, and the front hall had arrived. "There are maids serving here, so I left in spring and summer." Zhao Wuling had just taken his seat when he heard a cry of surprise outside the hall, followed by the voices of spring and summer. "Miss has just left, Miss Air must not have any more accidents." "Sister Chuanxia, what should we do now?" "Go find them separately." Quickly, there was no movement outside the hall. Zhao Wuling picked up a tea cup, condensing the misty tea breath. He didn't know what was on his mind, and his eyes became even more profound. As evening approached, the food delivered was indeed poisoned. Xiao Yu originally intended to pretend to be poisoned, but on second thought, it was not feasible. As the tomb came for inspection, he would definitely pass through. In addition, the prison was dim, and even if the murderer was mixed in, she would find it difficult to distinguish. "The taste is like pig wash, it makes me lose my appetite." She pretended to be disgusted, kicked the bowl over with one foot, and then sat at the iron fence door, observing the prison guards entering and exiting for any abnormalities. The injury on the finger has scabbed, and dried dark blood covers the skin. When the finger is slightly closed, you can feel the tearing, gradually causing pain. After this matter, she doesn't want to go down the mountain anymore. Candlelight flickered in prison, and a round object crouched in front of her cell door, only a fist away from her. "Are you the one who killed my sister?" Xiao Yu helped her forehead. "Why is she always absent-minded today?" "Just ignore Zhao Wuling. How could a young woman suddenly appear without her noticing anything?" "So it's Miss Tu Air, how did you get in?" "I'm small, they didn't notice." The yamen in a small place was not well guarded, and 3 unwelcome guests came to the prison without the prison guards noticing. "The killer has arrived, and they can enter and exit freely like their own homes. The child in front of me is only 3 or 4 years old, propping up her chin and curiously looking at her. Are you the one who killed my sister?" she asked again. Xiao Yu sat against the wall and said weakly, "No, it's not. My sister once said, a good-looking person has a kind heart. If you look so good, you must be very kind. Thank you very much, Miss Air, for your praise." She smiled. "However, this is not the case. The more beautiful something is, the more dangerous it is. The little kid doesn't understand these things, and she's not in the mood to explain." Miss Tu Air stood up and sat with her at an average height. Without looking up, she could see her small face as white as a ball. It seems like a scaled-down version of Tu Jinjin is talking to her. "But I clearly saw sister follow you, you look so beautiful, I remember you." Hiss. Xiao Yu sat up straight in disbelief and said, "Did you describe the appearance of the killer in the portrait?" "Yeah." Miss Tu Air nodded sincerely and said, "Auntie asked me, and I said it. They all said you killed my sister, and I'll ask you." "I see." After she left that day, she didn't know that Tu Jinjin was following behind her, and Miss Tu Air saw this scene. This baby only said that Tu Jinjin had left with her, and the others assumed that she had killed her, treating her as the culprit and posting her portrait. "I didn't kill your sister," she patiently replied once again. Miss Tu Air seemed to have encountered a difficult problem, and after thinking for a moment, she said, "Since you didn't kill my sister, let them release you. It's very unpleasant here, and there are mice." "Are you afraid of mice?" "I'm so afraid of mice." End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Killing on the Spot. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Killing on the Spot. Xiao Yu said, "I'm not afraid." "You're really amazing." Xiao Yu's smile gradually deepened, but it was vague yet obscure. She is too young to understand what death is, let alone her sister who will never come back. She speaks with an innocent expression, leaving people at a loss. It's getting dark, the mice are about to come out. Miss Eyre, hurry up and go home. As soon as she spoke, Miss Eyre grabbed her shoulder and became afraid of harm. Her small face tightened and she turned around and ran away. Xiao Yu leaned back against the wall, closing her eyes and regaining her senses. The scene of that day played over and over again in her mind, spilling wine all over the ground, the fragrance of osmanthus in the courtyard, the blushing face of the girl, the crowded gathering wait. She suddenly opened her eyes and bumped into a pair of deep black eyes, which had always been as cold as water and calm without waves, but now they were full of doubts. What's wrong with the hands? Xiao Yu quickly realized and explained, I accidentally pricked it. Master told you so, I'm really fine. Master didn't say anything, Chu Zhijiang snorted coldly. Ah. Xiao Yu pursed her lips and knew she had caused trouble. She quickly changed the topic and said, Senior brother, why did you come? Senior brother, don't worry, come and see you. Master treats her like a master, and master treats her like a senior brother. Strictly speaking, the senior brother taught her more, and it's not an exaggeration to say she's half a master. Senior brother, don't worry, I'm fine. She looked calm and didn't seem to be lying. Chu Zhijiang glanced at her curiously and said, just say that you are a woman, and you can be cleared of the charge of raping and killing Tu Zhinzhen. Why are you still here? Lie. Xiao Yu frowned and said, it's not that you're just clinging on and not leaving. By the way, senior brother, did you see a 3 or 4-year-old girl when you just came in? I saw it, it crawled out of the dog hole. That's Tu Zhinzhen's little sister. Chu Zhijiang nodded and suddenly said, she's so small. Although your martial arts are poor, you're more than enough to deal with a child. Xiao Yu had a dark expression on her face, and her senior brother misunderstood that Miss Eyre was here to avenge her sister, and also scolded her. Seeing that her face was not good, Chu Zhijiang restrained himself and said, she really didn't come to hit you. Of course not. Xiao Yuchang let out a long sigh and said, Senior brother, guess who said the appearance of the killer? Chu Zhijiang blurted out, Miss Eyre. Xiao Yuning, swaying by the candlelight, gradually frowned and said, that day there was a gathering in the town, and there were many people who went to the market. I went to the tavern to get a drink and waited in line in the alley for a long time. When I returned, I squeezed into the crowd on the street, so crowded that I couldn't see the road ahead. I was simply being pushed forward. I can't see clearly from such a height, Miss Eyre only reached my knee. How could I see so clearly? It's unbelievable that a child could depict my appearance so accurately. Unless someone teaches her. Drink, drink. No, this wine is really intoxicating today. It's you who can't handle alcohol, come and continue drinking. I really don't. Dong. The bearded prison guard knocked his head against the table, fell asleep, and soon let out bursts of snoring. Ha ha ha. The other prison guard pushed and shoved him twice, but when there was no movement, he laughed and sneered a few times. Then he propped up the table and wanted to stand up, swaying and falling to the ground, and there was no more sound. The dim yellow candlelight swayed and reflected the twisted black shadows on the wall. He climbed down the stairs and slowly walked towards the corner cell door. A wisp of green smoke drifted in, and the people inside quickly became motionless. The lock chain of the prison door had been rusty for some years, and after struggling to open it, he cursed softly and walked in, leaning against the wall for the dead ghost and fainting. From a distance, it looks very handsome, but closer it becomes even more stunning. How could a man be so beautiful? She looks much better than Tu Zhinzhen, but unfortunately she is a man, don't worry, it won't hurt, hee hee. The dark figure squatted halfway, slowly opening the medicine bottle and pouring a brown poison pill into his hand. He pinched both sides of the ghost's cheeks with his thumb and index finger and opened his mouth to feed it. Halfway away from his lips, he suddenly closed his mouth for the dead ghost, opened his eyes, and stared straight at him, close at hand, like a sword piercing through his soul. "You didn't faint." The dark figure suddenly stood up and retreated, with a dagger tightly held in his hand from his waist. "Since you don't know what's good or bad, then don't blame me," he said, "Stains." Xiao Yu also stood up, twirling a silver needle with his fingertips, and jokingly said, "Your master wants me to take the blame for him. It really took a lot of effort. If you had known I would come tonight." Oh, beyond measure, the prison guard had already fainted, and no one could have saved you. The black figure flashed a dagger and coldly sneered, piercing it. The cold light was piercing, brushing past Xiao Yu's right arm. She spun like a top to another corner, revealing half an inch of the silver needle. "Just prick his acupoint and make him faint for a while, and the matter of conviction will not be under the jurisdiction of this commoner. Make a loud noise." The entrance was crowded with people, including the 2 prison guards who fainted just now. Knowing that the plan had failed, Black Shadow became angry and wanted to forcefully kill him. He was kicked hard by Big Beard and fell to the ground. Big Beard let out a cold snort and glanced at Xiao Yu watching the play in the corner. "It's almost being poisoned to death, this guy still has a good mood. Heartless and heartless." This battle really surprised Xiao Yu. When Miss Two Air came in, she even despised the lax supervision of the Yamen, and didn't expect it to be so powerful. She is waiting for the murderer, and the Yamen is also laying out. Did her master persuade Tu Yuan why? Anyway, she can finally go home with peace of mind. She rubbed the silver needle and advised, "What's the use of struggling since this is the end of the matter? If you don't hurry and surrender, turn around and wash away your sins earlier. Stop talking nonsense." The Black Shadow suddenly rushed behind her, pinching her shoulder and arm, and a sharp dagger lay across her neck. He shouted loudly towards the door, "Let me go, otherwise I'll kill him." The prison guards all had cold faces and remained indifferent. "My elbow is constrained and I can't find a good place to start. It's dark and cramped here, and the outside is wider." First, follow his instructions and then look for opportunities to start. Therefore, Xiao Yu flattered the prison guard and said, "Brother, I am innocent. I don't want to die yet, let him go. You are so powerful, even if you let the murderer go, it would be very easy to catch him back." The dagger came a little closer and coldly pressed against her throat. Black Shadow was anxious and unbearable, and shouted sternly, "If you don't let me out again, I'll really kill him. I'll count 3 times, 3. A male voice came from afar, deafening. "Young master, you have an order to kill on the spot." "Yes." As the sound fell, the prison guard suddenly raised his hand, drew his bow, and aimed his arrow at the corner, ready to fire. "Kill now." "What about her, what should she do? She is the #1 hero in capturing the murderer, how can she cross the river and demolish the bridge?" Xiao Yu gritted her teeth and asked, "Who exactly is the young master?" End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Self-Rescue of Waste Wood. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6. Self-Rescue of Waste Wood. Her master and senior brother are still in the future, and now she can only find ways to save herself. The silver needle cannot be used casually, and there is only one chance. I glanced at the opposite wall, measured the distance and height, and quickly selected a location. Pushi. She suddenly laughed. Hee hee. What are you laughing at? Shut up. The hand of the black figure holding the dagger trembled slightly, obviously afraid. Xiao Yu was his last life-saving straw. Since the conditions cannot be negotiated, let's take a fight and shoot an arrow. He will use hostages as targets and kill them all the way. Xiao Yu chuckled lightly and said, "If I were your family leader, since I have found a replacement ghost, I would rest at home and take a deep sleep." Even if the county magistrate finds out that I was not released by tomorrow afternoon, I would find another replacement ghost or simply flee. Why send someone to silence me? Don't talk nonsense, what's the use of saying these things now? Of course there is, it's easy to fall into the trap, that's it. When she said this, she spoke slowly and slowly. As the prison guard drew his bow, it was time to finish speaking. His fingertips flicked slightly, and a faint cold light pierced the opposite wall. At the same time, the arrow struck directly at the door, piercing through the peaceful night sky with a whoosh. Xiao Yu pursed her lips tightly, her gaze fixed on the arrows shooting at her. Suddenly, a faint sound could be heard in her ear, so faint that only she could hear it. Ah! A painful cry in my ear was like a dark shadow. Accompanied by it was a cold arrow within reach, which was about to pierce through her forehead in the next moment. Xiao Yu's eyebrows and eyes closed slightly, and one finger pushed the dagger away, quickly bending down her knees like a ghost. A heavy sense of oppression suddenly brushed over my head. Ah! Blood bloomed between the black figure's eyebrows, and the back of his head hit the wall. His body slowly slid down the wall, dragging out a long bloodstain. When Zuanzhenzi and his two disciples arrived, their sixth son was studying against a wall, muttering softly from time to time. Gu Yuyang covered his mouth and exclaimed in surprise, "Master, have you been scared out of your wits?" Zuanzhenzi felt a pain in his heart, but he heard his eldest disciple Chu Zhijiang explain, "This is a review. She must have pierced the wall with a silver needle." Xianzhenzi breathed a sigh of relief as she realized, "Oh, it's okay, that's okay." Gu Yuyang pursed his lips and casually sneered, "Junior sister, practicing this needle technique is very average on weekdays, and sometimes she may even hurt herself. I don't know how many inches she penetrated today." Chu Zhijiang looked forward and raised his eyebrows, saying, "It's shallower than before." Gu Yuyang suddenly smiled and said, "Ha ha ha, as expected, there's no need for the senior brother to be disappointed. I believe the junior sister has already done her best, and if she continues to work hard, she will eventually succeed after practicing him for 10 or 8 years. Chu Zhijiang lowered his head and whispered to Xiao Yu, ignoring him. He rubbed his nose and looked at his master in a casual manner. Zuanzhenzi was stretching his neck to look outside when he saw the prison guard walking away, which made him curious. "Fish, when I just came in, I saw you take the silver needle from the murderer's hand. What's going on?" Xiao Yu looked up and was about to answer, but he heard his senior brother exclaim, "On weekdays, senior brother always complains that you are lazy. Your strength is not deep enough, and you don't know that even with light strength, you can still make a difference." Upon hearing this, Gu Youyang's lips trembled and he couldn't help but laugh angrily. What did senior brother say? The needle technique needs to be fast, accurate, ruthless, and deep. Practicing it until 80% is considered successful. Senior brother's praise is so impressive, isn't it, that anyone on the street can achieve great things? Zuanzhenzi knew his eldest disciple well, and was proud and stingy in praising him. He was dissatisfied with Xiaoyer's many criticisms of practicing martial arts in his daily life, and he never appreciated him as much as he does today. What's going on? He asked again the question that had just been mercilessly interrupted by his beloved disciple. Master. Chu Zhijiang made a gesture of invitation and walked out of the yamen before explaining, "Junior sister is being held hostage by the murderer, her arms are tied, and she is not in a good position. If she takes action rashly, she will surely startle the murderer. Therefore, we can only rely on our strength, which is the safest way." Borrowing strength. Yes, by the force of the wall. By leveraging the power of the wall, the silver needle turns back and stabs the hand of the murderer holding a dagger. Zuanzhenzi was suddenly surprised and said, "I see, this method carries great risks. If the silver needle is pierced deeply, it may also be pierced shallowly. This is not enough. Anyone who misses half a point will not succeed." He gave a dissatisfied glare, and Xiao Yu pursed her lips without making a sound. In such a hurry, she had to fight hard to have a glimmer of vitality. That young master Lashizi made it clear that he didn't want to save her. Compared to the worries of his master, Chu Zhijiang did not take them seriously and immersed himself in his own thoughts. Time, location, and harmony are all indispensable. If a junior sister can visually measure her distance from the wall and the height of her rebound in a short period of time, how much strength she should use. It's not just about speed and accuracy, courage is even more superior. Moreover, in all martial arts, the only way to achieve success is to be fast without breaking through, ruthless or not, deep or not. Let's talk about it separately. Visual inspection. Gu Yuyang was greatly shocked and couldn't believe it. Little junior sister's eyes are really poisonous. She has the ability to see everything perfectly, not everyone has it. In his eyes, the junior sister was just a useless person who couldn't achieve great things. Unexpectedly, today's incident opened his eyes. Where exactly did third master pick up the person from? Xiao Yu was very humble and said, "Thanks to my master and senior brother teaching well." Humph. Look at the proud appearance of Chu Zhijiang, pretending to be lofty. He felt unhappy in his heart, and the yin-yang monster said, "With such good needlework, if my junior sister goes to learn embroidery, she should be able to embroider the best embroidery in the world, stunning and famous." Shut up. Zuanzhenzi's face suddenly changed and she sternly scolded, "Your junior sister has only experienced life and death. You just don't care about a few words, you're still talking nonsense here." Knowing that he had touched his master's scales again, Gu Yuyang felt ashamed and lowered his head. "I know my mistake. The fish's neck is injured. Go prepare some medicine for the injury, and pay for it yourself. Just treat it as a gesture of goodwill for your own junior sister." "Yes, master." A little injury, Xiao Yu didn't pay much attention to it. When the sun had just risen at sunset, it was already the second shift, and he didn't have dinner. Now his stomach was empty and he was falling. "I want to eat something good." The carriage of two mansion was waiting outside the yamen. Xiao Yu got on the carriage and closed his eyes to take a nap, listening to his master and senior brothers talk about where they went and what they did today. He also mentioned the interesting story of Gu's senior brother passing through the house 3 times without being splashed with water by his father, which had a hypnotic effect. The yamen was not far from Two Mansion, and Xiao Yu was awakened while sleeping soundly. At this moment, only his master and senior brother were left in the car. After clearing his throat, he asked in confusion, "Senior brother, where is second senior brother?" "Went home, oh." While yawning and trying to open his eyes, the butler waited at the door and welcomed the 3 of them in. The gate of Two Mansion was hung with white silk, and the atmosphere instantly became cold and solemn. Xiao Yuan quietly followed her senior brother and walked through the alley. From a distance, she saw a maid kneeling in the hall, with a coffin lying in front of her, and Tu Xinzhen was there. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. The Past of the Wandering Sun. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. The Past of the Wandering Sun. Miss Tu, please rest in peace. She felt a great sense of regret in her heart and felt a knot in her chest. People die and their souls perish, Tu Xinzhen is gone, and the Dong family is also. It's just that. She closed her eyes, regained her composure, and in a blink of an eye, she had already bypassed the spiritual hall. The butler led them to the backyard. "The guest rooms have been cleaned, please rest early. The old master is discussing with the young marquis in the front hall, and I have to go over to serve him. Sorry for the inconvenience. Little marquis. This place where birds don't defecate has never heard of a noble person coming. Isn't the background of Tu Yuanwai not simple?" The butler replied, "He is the young master of the Anil Marquis family in the capital. Anil Ho." Marquis Anil had 3 sons and 2 daughters with his original wife. His eldest daughter, Su Yinger, married Wu Hai, the son of Wu Lianli, the Minister of Personnel. His youngest daughter, Su Liner, was only 16, 3.5 years younger than her. Su Boyi, the eldest son, worked for the crown prince in his early years and was at odds with the king of Jin. After the crown prince was deposed, Su Boyi was demoted from a 4th-rank cabinet attendant to a 9th-rank Hanlin Academy attendant. Feeling depressed, he fell seriously ill and showed no signs of improvement. The second son Su Zhongyan appeared to be gentle and refined, but in reality, he had ambitions and was not interested in the court dispute, so he joined the army stationed at the border. This third son, Su Shurue, spends his days idle and aimless. Without the pressure of his elder brother and younger brother, he calls himself the little Marquis and colludes with the domineering Dong Wanwan. The fact that Marquis Anil had illegitimate children was the result of his own father's betrayal. Is it difficult? Is he really here? Knock and knock. Xiao Gongzi, the night snack is ready. Thank you very much. The simple dishes of clear congee are light and refreshing. There is no big fish and meat, and there is something to be satisfied with. Xiao Yu is satisfied. Along with the late-night snack, there was also a bottle of hemostatic medicine. After simple application of the medicine, I slept with my clothes, probably full and without any drowsiness. Tossing and turning, some old memories come to mind for no reason. Su Shurue and Dong Wanwan were born in the same year, only a little over a month apart. They grew up together from a young age. Dong Wanwan was arrogant, while Su Shurue was a playboy. They had a similar bad taste for each other. If anything bad happens in the capital, it is likely their masterpiece. The parents of the two families abandoned the idea of becoming in-laws, fearing that they would become lawless in the future and make a big mistake at the feet of the emperor. The only time two playboys got together was once, when Su Shurue had just turned 16 when he came crying and startled Dong Wanwan's chin. I always thought my parents were very affectionate, and my father obeyed my mother. Even if my mother agreed to take a concubine, my father would never want to. Well, everyone knows that your parents are the most loving couple in the world, she said as she fiddled with the wooden mechanism. No, it's not. Su Shurue suddenly became irritable and stood up, shouting angrily, "They're not." Today, I went to see my grandmother and heard her say outside the door that she wants to bring my father's son back to his ancestors. What, your father has a son outside? She widened her eyes, as if hearing some incredible secret. Indeed, as a good friend, she was filled with righteous indignation and stood on the united front with Su Shurue. Why is your father like this? It's too much. Too much. Seeing her feeling so unfair towards him, Su Shurue's mood improved a lot and he could finally sit down and speak well. Besides my grandmother and father, I also saw my mother standing next to my father. She always knew that my father had an illegitimate child outside, and what's even worse, that illegitimate child was 2 years older than me. It's already coronal, stains. Dong Wanwan tugged at the corner of her mouth. That is to say, before becoming pregnant with Su Shurue, Marquis Anil had already been in cahoots with other women. Despite this, Marquis Anil's wife was still willing to give birth to Su Shurue and Su Liner for him. It can be said that Lady Anil was the daughter of the right Prime Minister. At that time, the right Prime Minister had high authority and was much more powerful than Lady Anil, who was a carefree official. As a result, Lady Anil had a very high temperament and pursued a monogamous lifestyle. She was selected as the inconspicuous Prince Anil among countless good sons in the past. You should know that Su Zhen was not a Marquis of Anil back then. Old Marquis of Anil favored his eldest son the most. However, his eldest son passed away early, and the remaining sons did not have much success. Old Marquis of Anil looked down upon them all. Later, the daughter of the right Prime Minister fell in love with Su Zhen, and the old Marquis of Anil gave him a different look. Before dying, she chose him to inherit the title of Marquis of Anil. Su Boyi was also promoted all the way due to his grandfather, but later the crown prince fell and the crown prince's party was implicated. The Right Chancellor judged the situation and retired to his hometown. Although Su Boyi still held official positions, he could no longer be trusted. Of course, this is a later part. What she thought was that Lady Annal valued her husband's innocence so much, and even though she found out that he had an illegitimate child outside, she could still remain so calm and keep it a secret for 18 years. At that time, she was still young and didn't know the principle of equal prosperity and equal loss, let alone what her face was. If I were your mother, I would have chopped off that illegitimate child and promiscuous woman with one knife, and then sued them in front of the palace, allowing the Holy One and the Right Chancellor to take control and seize your father's title. My mother doesn't know. I don't care about their affairs. I'm very irritable now. If that illegitimate son really accepts his ancestors and returns to his family, he will also have a share in everything in the Marquis's mansion in the future. Father doesn't like me like this, why should I argue with him? Does your older brother know about this? Big Brother is a popular figure around the Crown Prince, supported by his grandfather behind his back. In the future, when the Crown Prince ascends the throne, Big Brother must position himself as an extremely talented minister with an unlimited future. That's why he can't bear to see the small and famous Marquis of Annal above all. Second brother is the same. He said he wants to come up with a name on his own, but he hasn't come back for several years, so he can't rely on it. Hey! Su Shirue frowned deeply, thinking that he had really encountered great difficulties. Pop! Dong Wanwan patted the table and stood up, full of arrogance. This matter is simple, what is the name of that illegitimate child? My grandmother called him Wuling. If I heard him correctly, he should be surnamed Zhao and called Zhao Wuling. Zhao Wuling, right. Send a few naughty Lizzie to beat him up and threaten him to leave the capital and never come back in his lifetime. If he doesn't listen, quietly kill and bury him, once and for all. She drew her hands into a knife and made a neck-wiping gesture across her throat. Su Shirue's eyes lit up, he picked up a teacup and drank it all up, then turned his head and ran out of the general's mansion. She didn't know if he had done these things. 10 days later, she saw Zhao Wuling in the suburbs of Beijing, and things changed rapidly. 1 month later, the crown prince fell, the king of Jin ascended to the throne of the Eastern Palace, and the Dong family was executed. She was first imprisoned, then exiled to the capital, and never saw Su Shirue again. The ambitious Su Boyi ultimately had a dream of attending court. Front hall. Thanks to the young Marquis's thorough investigation, he discovered something suspicious and sent someone to secretly track Zhang Wensong. He also made some arrangements in the Yamen, so that I did not wrongly accuse the good person. Zhao Wuling took over half of it, as for the other half. Yuanyi's praise is absurd. I still need to thank Miss Tuer for this matter. Tu Jin was confused and asked, Minger. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Who wants to have a child? Ah. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Who wants to have a child? Ah. Zhao Wuling nodded with a smile and said, He, this. Master. At this moment, the butler rushed back with a lantern and reported, Master Xuanzhen and his 2 disciples have arranged everything properly. Okay, young Master Xiao is righteous and fearless of life and death, sacrificing himself to provoke evil. Previously, I said some unpleasant things to my wife and asked him not to take them to heart. Don't worry, Master Xiao is very kind and won't mind. No, I have to personally apologize for this matter. After dawn, I will instruct the kitchen to prepare some good wine and dishes. Yes. The butler retreated to the side to replace the candle wick, and Tu Jin reacted and explained to the nobleman beside him, Little Marquis, I don't know. The suspect in prison today was played by the beloved disciple of Taoist Zuanzhenzi from Qinglongshan. Moreover, the Taoist himself did the ritual for the little girl, but the Taoist didn't reveal the truth. The lower official was angry for a moment and rushed to the prison with his wife to scold his beloved disciple. It's really embarrassing. Tu Jin is also considered a prominent figure in Jiangning town, but he is able to speak out his mistakes without hesitation and reflect on himself. Such a broad mind is truly rare. He comforted and said, the loss of their beloved daughter by the staff member and his wife is inevitable due to some thoughtfulness. As parents, this is human nature. Zhe Sha has been demoted. Tu Jin felt ashamed and shook his head repeatedly. Young Master Xiao was imprisoned for a day and almost fell victim to the poisonous hands of Zhang Wensong. It's really a shameless disaster. No reckless disaster. Zhao Wuling couldn't help but remember the way he had seen her in prison, calm and indifferent. Apart from that face, he couldn't find anything similar to Dong Wanwan. The young Master Xiao mentioned by the agent, but he knows Ling Ai. Otherwise, how could she disregard life and death and put herself in a dangerous situation? Apply and shake your head. Zhao Wuling's eyebrows slightly raised, yet he didn't know each other. Interesting. Tu Jin sighed and said, as soon as the young lady was about to leave the cabinet, I and my wife chose some good sons-in-law. However, the young lady didn't like her and caused a lot of trouble at home. She was very angry and didn't like those men, but she fell in love with Xiao Gongzi at first sight at the gathering. She even went to her Chen's house to inquire about the news. Old Chen told the young lady that the Zhen wanted to persuade me and her mother to come and propose marriage after she returned home. Speaking of which, Tu Jin choked up and lowered his head to quietly wipe away his tears. Deadly ghost Zhang Wensong, it's fortunate that I wanted to marry my daughter to his Zhang family as a new wife, but I did such a cruel thing to my daughter. Hey! He applied a heavy hammer to his thigh, feeling remorseful. Having loved my daughter for so many years, being humiliated to death like that is unbearable pain for any parent. Zhao Wuling raised his hand and patted Tu on the shoulder, urging him, Miss Tu is still young and needs to be nurtured by both parents. Please don't be too sad and damage your body. Thank you very much for your comfort, Marquis. I have made a fool of myself by being impolite. I shouldn't have talked about this matter. Tu Jin adjusted his appearance and returned to normal, saying, Little Marquis just said that he will leave Jiangning tomorrow. Why don't you stay a few more days? I can arrange. No need to trouble, passing by Jiangning this time was a temporary impulse. Before returning to the capital, I need to represent the Crown Prince to meet an old friend in Jinzhou. Since that's the case, I won't persuade you to stay. Not yet. A carriage arrived at West Street, accompanied by a galloping horse. On top of the high horse sat a cold-faced man with a cloud-patterned long sword on his waist, in a posture of keeping strangers away. Pedestrians avoided it. The person inside the car ordered, Han Yi, restrain yourself and do not disturb the people. Yes. But in my heart, I feel depressed. Even though it was those people who left on their own, why did the young master blame him? Compared to the bustling scene of numerous liquor shops on Dongjie, and selling horses and utensils on Shijie, there are not many pedestrians on weekdays. Along the way, only the heavy sound of wheels rolling off the bluestone road is heard, occasionally accompanied by the thumping sound of blacksmiths. It's the peak of the sun again, making people feel drowsy. After passing the last iron shop, a wave of scolding could be heard from afar. Evil disciple, what vulgar words you said. I asked you to buy some wound-healing medicine for Xiao Yu. Look at what you bought in a mess, such as Rami grass, madder grass, crane grass. These are all drugs for preventing miscarriage. Who wants to have a child? Ah. The doctor said it had a hemostatic effect, so I bought it all. I used all of this medicine once, and even if it's a bleeding hole, it can be cured. What's the point of her injury? You're going to be so angry as to become a teacher. Master, don't worry, just give it a whipping. Shut up, Chu. Evil disciple, how can you talk to your senior brother? It's really neither big nor small. I made a mistake, master. Don't hit me. This time, the carriage window was half open, revealing a handsome face, and the cold brown gaze looked over with a faint gaze. Han also tightly grasped the reins, wanting to make a move. If the young master doesn't like to make noise, I will drive him away. Zhao Wuling raised his hand to stop. You can't be rude to the distinguished guests of Tu Mansion. Tu Fu. Isn't that, young master, do you mean that those who are not serious are Zuanzhenzi and his disciples? The slender fingertips tapped on the window edge and said lightly, I haven't seen those few people along the way. There's only one fork in the road here, and 100 meters to the right of the fork is Tu Mansion. Coincidentally, there are 4 people. The young master's words reminded me that the hostage in prison yesterday had a very similar figure to one of these 4 people. Thinking of yesterday's incident, Han couldn't help but squint his eyes and say, Zuanzhenzi, this disciple is not easy. He can remain calm in the face of double danger. I don't know what method he used, but he easily got rid of the threat. The arrow went straight through his head, and his face remained unchanged. Is that right? Zhao Wuling smiled, the person who can make you Han also appreciate. I believe this young master Xiao is not something from the pool. I'm just telling the truth, I'm just curious about something. What's up? This Zuanzhenzi is a Taoist cultivator, but his disciples dress casually, not like cultivators, but rather like hermits and knights. Zuanzhenzi once practiced at Tianqi Mountain in Tongzhou. He had a profound understanding of the path of cultivation, but unfortunately, after his master Yuan Yidao passed away, he stopped practicing and went down the mountain with his senior brother. No one knew his whereabouts anymore. Looking at the scattered figures, Zhao Wuling raised his eyebrows and said, I didn't expect to come to Jiangning town to establish a leisurely sect. It looks quite leisurely. Han also exclaimed, I am about to achieve enlightenment but I can give up decisively. This Zuanzhenzi is really ruthless, no wonder he can teach such a disciple. For some reason, he always remembered the figure of young Master Xiao. The wheels rolled forward, the window curtains were lowered, and Zhao Wuling in the carriage coldly reminded, You talked a lot today, Han Yi. I admit my mistake. Xiao Yu was lazily picking at the wild grass on the roadside, when his senior brother gave him a light shout and took it back with a smirk. It has always been like this. My master didn't say anything, but my senior brother kept a close eye on her. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Narrow avenues for enemies, playing tricks on the spot. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Narrow avenues for enemies, playing tricks on the spot. If you don't say hello and go down the mountain without permission, go back and practice more. If you can't break through the 16th move of the Cold Ice Sword Manual by the end of the month, all the fruits in the orchard belong to your 5th senior brother. Hiss. That's really tough. Even though she knew she wouldn't be able to deal with senior brother Wu, she still threatened like this. If she had given him everything, he would have been even more arrogant in the future. Gu Yuyang remained silent, and Lao Wu was his. Zuanzhenzi blew his beard and glared, Evil disciple, are you pointing fingers and cursing locusts? Are I the master or are you the master? Chu Zhijiang. You are. Stinky kid. Zuanzhenzi was so angry that he had no trace of superiority or inferiority in his heart. A loud shout passed through the hot wind and drifted into my ears. A few people, please stay. The young master has an order to kill him on the spot. Xiao Yu turned around and looked at the galloping horse, whose person had a dead face. It's him. It was his order that almost shot her through the forehead. The one sitting in the carriage must be the young master he spoke of. What are you doing to stop them? She pondered in her heart and threw her gaze at the other person like a knife. Han also did not expect that this young master Xiao was born so handsome, not as manly and handsome as his own young master, adding a touch of the agility and beauty of a woman. Yesterday I couldn't see clearly in prison, but now it's a fleeting glance. The appearance of the other two young people is also not bad, ranking among the top, but they are still much worse than those surnamed Xiao. Ignoring Xiao Yu's cold gaze, Han Yi dismounted and took 2 steps forward, embracing his sword and bowing to Xian Zhenzi, saying, I, Han Yi, have met Taoist. Zhuan Zhenzi also said with courtesy, Master Han, you have courtesy. Han also said, I heard that the Taoist and his disciples have captured the real culprit for the Tu family, which is a great act of kindness. My young master wants to see a few of you. Your young master? Yes. He, Xiao Yu's heart was full of slander, and she still had the face to see him. She wanted to see how thick his young master's skin was. The coachman drew the curtain and a slender figure walked off the carriage. In the hot weather, he was dressed in light and simple clothes, with meticulous workmanship. Under the blazing light, it walked leisurely. I have met Zhuan Zhenzi Daochang in the lower Zhao Wuling. Zhuan Zhenzi didn't know, so he thought he was a successful young master from a certain family. He also said politely, Young Master Zhao, you have manners. Zhao Wuling bowed again to the 3 people next to Zhuan Zhenzi, showing a dignified demeanor with no abnormal expression. It turned out that he ordered the killing yesterday. What a Zhao Wuling, using Yin moves behind his back. I said those things in prison yesterday, but today I pretend not to know each other and come to greet you in a fake manner. What a great acting skill. Yes, being able to work together with that person is by no means an ordinary person. No matter what his purpose is, he must handle it carefully. Xiao Yu calmly took a half step back and bowed back to her home with her 2 senior brothers, but in the scorching sun, she only felt sweat on her back. So this is young Master Xiao. As soon as I saw him today, he was indeed as praised by Counselor Tuesday. He is a talented and kind-hearted bodhisattva. A cold brown gaze swept over her face like the wind, and she immediately invited, the weather is so hot. I would like to invite a few people to the tea house to drink a few cups of herbal tea as a token of my admiration. This sentence was like a command, with a solemn aura faintly suppressed, and no one dared to rashly refuse. Zhuan Zhenzi finally realized something was wrong. This young Master Zhao looked at him with elegance, easygoing demeanor, and thoughtful manners, but he always had the upper hand. When he smiled lightly, his momentum was particularly strong. Whatever he says, it can only be true. How majestic. In the blink of an eye, the 5 of them had already taken their seats in the tea house, with a red-painted square table, Zhuan Zhenzi on the left, Chu Zhijiang on the right, Zhao Wuling on the upper echelon, and Gu Yuyang and Xiao Yu sitting down together. Originally, Gu Yuyang and Chu Zhijiang could sit together, but the 2 of them didn't really like each other, so Xiao Yu had a companion. It's also good, facing Zhao Wuling, looking up but not looking down, with someone by his side, it's better than being alone and helpless. Each in the seat has their own thoughts, and tea has become tasteless. The decoration of the tea house is novel, but the furnishings have been around for some years. It seems that the old building has been renovated to attract more customers, but unfortunately, it is located in a quiet market and business is somewhat sluggish. Many of the guests who came in were traveling far away, so there was a stable outside the tea house, which was convenient for guests to temporarily place horses. A wall away from Xiao Yu's seat is the stable. The movement of the horse chewing grass, the sound of the horse's snot, the sound of the horse's hooves stepping away, she could hear any movement clearly. Xiao Gongzi is interested in horses. Xiao Yu looked up and caught a glimpse of the slightly curved thin lips that landed on those brown eyes, but there was no trace of anything unusual. It seems like just a casual question. She also casually replied, no. The conversation could have ended abruptly, but Gu Yuyang suddenly opened his conversation box as if he had been pressed a switch. Zhao Gongzi is somewhat unaware that my little master and junior brother are not afraid of other animals, only afraid of approaching horses, especially the tall and strong western region's fierce horses. Zhao Wuling raised his eyebrows and said, oh, really? Yeah. Cough cough. Xiao Yu picked up the teacup and coughed lightly. Gu Yuyang glanced at her and said, "Junior brother, you haven't had it yet. Why did you choke?" Xiao Yu. In front of outsiders, Zuanzhenzi couldn't get angry and gave him a secret glare, indicating that he would shut up and avoid discussing the right and wrong of his junior sister in front of others. Zhao Wuling didn't pay much attention and drank tea on his own, with a faint smile on his lips. If things continue like this, it's okay. Isn't it that others are being laughed at? Chu Zhijiang had to divert the topic and said, "Listen to Zhao Gongzi's accent, unlike locals, who come to Jiangning. I was originally going to Jinzhou, passing through Jiangning. Seeing the simple and beautiful scenery here, I took a 2-day break. Jinzhou. Well, why is Chu Gongzi so surprised? Jinzhou is my mother's hometown, much more interesting than Jiangning. Zhao Gongzi can stay for a few more days after completing the task. What things are there in Jinzhou, not necessarily in other places? Chu Gongzi's sincere recommendation, if you have free time, I will definitely give you a tour." Silently listening to their conversation, Xiao Yu thought to herself that Zhao Wuling had come all the way from the capital, with only one guard by his side. She probably didn't want to make a big fuss. Traveling quietly, but openly blocking them on the street. She glanced at the door, and Han also stood expressionless with his sword in his arms, his eyes sharp as he scanned the surroundings. Although she is not skilled in martial arts, she can perceive that this person has extremely high martial arts skills. Han also glanced sideways and collided with his cold and puzzled eyes. He nodded slightly to greet him, then withdrew his gaze and continued patrolling. In the conversation, it is inevitable to mention the murder of Miss Tu, and when it comes to Tu Zhenjian, the topic will inevitably lead to her. Zhao Wuling suddenly sighed and said, "I heard from Counselor Tu that Miss Tu fell in love with Prince Xiao at first sight. They look very compatible, it's really a pity." With a tug of her mouth, she replied, "Zhao Gongzi is joking. Even if Miss Tu is unharmed, how dare Xiao, a reckless man, delay the beauty." End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Senior brother sings white face, she can only sing red face. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10. Senior brother sings white face, she can only sing red face Mangfu. Zhao Wuling's gaze fell on the cut neck and he said softly, "Young Master Xiao is really humble. I flatter you." Young Master Xiao, despite his young age, harbors righteousness and leads the real culprit through his personal danger, which is truly admirable. Xiao Yu bowed his hand and said, "I dare not take it for granted. Taoist, I just mentioned." Zhao Wuling naturally started chatting with Xian Zhenzi, while Xiao Yu lowered his head and drank tea as if nothing had happened. The 7th cup is here. When exactly will he leave? She is not familiar with Zhao Wuling, and including yesterday's meeting, she has met 3 times in total. The first 2 meetings were not pleasant. This is the 3rd time my face has changed so quickly. This person's temperament is hard to guess. Sometimes it can be overwhelming, but at other times it can be as gentle as a Confucian scholar who respects the old and loves the young. The master was just on guard, and this meeting has already begun to talk freely. The conversation was obscure and difficult to understand, making her drowsy. An hour later, Xiao Yu was finally able to leave the tea house. Outside the carriage, her master and senior brothers were bidding farewell to Zhao Wuling, but she slowly retreated towards the distance. Since Zhao Wuling is no longer seeking trouble from her, why bother finding herself uninteresting? It's better to stay away. This farewell, I hope never to see you again. Han appeared next to her at some point, and without saying a word, he slapped her. Xiao Yusin couldn't help but cry out and immediately leaned back to hide. Master and senior brother didn't notice anything unusual here. If the other party takes action quickly, she will not be able to escape. The silver needle was half exposed, but Han also flipped his palm, with a small glass bottle lying in his palm. This is. She silently put away the silver needle, feeling confused. Excellent healing medicine. Han also gestured for the scar on her neck and joked, it's much more effective than Nala Shizi Rami grass, madder grass, and crane grass. Thank you very much. Xiao Yu chatted up, realizing that his master had scolded senior brother Gu for mistakenly buying anti-abortion pills, which he had overheard. After receiving the medicine, she also bowed slowly to Han. Han Yi was stunned for a moment, then hugged his sword and said, goodbye. So it's a woman. On the way back to the mountain, Zuanzhenzi kept chattering incessantly, immersed in the conversation he had just had. Zhao Gongzi has been studying Confucianism since he was young, but he is not as annoying as those old-fashioned people. He has such an open-minded mind. Moreover, he has a very thorough understanding of the teachings of our Taoist school, Lao Zhuang. It's really amazing. Gu Yuyang agreed, indeed, I always feel that this young master Zhao is not simple. Zuanzhenzi glanced at his own disciple and couldn't help but feel disgusted. Zhao Gongzi is only 20.1 years old, and he has such a state of mind. His behavior and demeanor are quite elegant. Except for Xiao Yu, both of you are older than him. When can we make being a teacher worry-free? Chu Zhijiang sneered and his black eyes were deep. Master, what did you say? Zuanzhenzi. It's nothing, I'm talking about your junior brother. Gu Yuyang. 1 month later. Xiao Yu barely broke through the 16th move of the Xianbing sword manual, and the 5th senior brother came back disappointed with an empty basket. Finally, the eldest senior brother personally went to deliver fruits to his master and 3 junior brothers. Everyone knew what was going on, so they collected the fruit and hid it in their own room, afraid that Lao Wu might snatch it. Even Gu Yuyang, who has the best relationship with Lao Wu, chose to turn a blind eye in order to satisfy his appetite. Old Five was so angry that he cursed outside his door for half a night, and it wasn't until the 3rd watch that he calmed down. 2 days later, Xiao Yu was fetching water from the wellhead when the 5th senior brother walked past her with sharp words, as if looking for a fight. She didn't worry about her senior brother, but she was afraid that her 5th senior brother would be beaten too hard, so she came out with a pig-like appearance. Flutter. With a crisp kneel, Xiao Yumai withdrew half of his foot from inside. Senior brother Wu said earnestly, Senior brother, I was wrong. Xiao Yu harbored a grudge in her heart. No matter how big the matter is, it's just a few fruits. How could it be so exaggerated? I shouldn't misunderstand my junior sister, let alone be rude to my senior brother in front of my master. Senior brother has a lot, so please forgive me this time. Chu Zhijiang was flipping through a book, turning a deaf ear. Lao Wu slipped and knelt down, without hesitation, holding onto his thigh, swaying like a child coquettishly. Senior brother, oh my dear senior brother, please forgive me. I promise I will never do it again in the future. Why do you feel so nauseous even though you haven't eaten much lunch? Xiao Yu turned around and was about to leave, but was still discovered. Come on in. She slowly turned back and indeed saw the embarrassed expression of senior brother Wu, as if it were a ripe rotten tomato. 5th senior brother. She nodded slightly, walked calmly into the threshold, sat down next to her senior brother, and said, Senior brother, the water tank is already filled with water. Chu Zhijiang. Okay. The atmosphere is subtle and indescribable. There were no extra books on the table, so she poured a cup of herbal tea and drank it on her own. Teacher. Sister. Her calves were tightly grabbed, and she lowered her eyes to look. 5 senior brothers knelt between the 2 like forks, holding one leg in one hand. Junior sister, senior brother knows his mistake. Junior sister, you are chivalrous and courageous. You are the pride of our Qinglong mountain. Senior brother shouldn't have treated you like that. Senior brother really regrets it. Please forgive him for a while. Junior sister, senior brother will listen to you. You can speak for me. Junior sister. It was the first time in the past 3 years that she had seen him so lowly, and she was not used to it. Senior brother Wu, it's just some minor friction. Why bother inciting others to come and apologize? Let's get up quickly. Seriously. He is so low-lipped that even in acting, she finds it difficult to get off. The senior brother sang, white-faced, but she could only sing, red-faced. I didn't expect the usually cold junior sister to be so easy to talk to, so Lu Qingshan smiled and said, if junior sister doesn't blame me, please beg for mercy from master brother on my behalf. Before Xiao Yu could speak, Chu Zhijiang had already stood up and effortlessly shook off the cowhide candy on his leg. Junior sister, take him to the orchard, senior brother, go out for a trip. Okay. The orchard has a small area, but there are only 6 people on the mountain, so they can't eat much. The rest is still in the orchard and hasn't been picked yet. Of course, Xiao Yu wouldn't pick fruits for senior brother Wu, as their relationship hasn't improved to that point yet. She just leads people in and doesn't care about the rest. Although brother Wu is picking it, I still have something to do. Let's take a step first. Bang dang. The fruit basket rolled over and fell without a shadow. Lu Qingshan raised his hand to pick a peach, weighed it in his palm, and suddenly raised his voice, Xiao Yu, don't you think I'm doing this today just for a few broken fruits? Not too surprised, he is already a fickle person. 5th senior brother, speak directly. Hee. Lu Qingshan sneered and said, I'm sure you don't know yet, senior brother is leaving. She twisted her eyebrows, the senior brother had never mentioned this before. So he didn't tell you, I thought you were so close, Lu Qingshan said proudly. You've been together for almost 3 years, and in the end, he's not hiding it from you. So. End of this chapter.